Rings of responsibility. High up outside the Earth's atmosphere, Hal Jordan and Jessica Cruz were training in a small asteroid cluster. Jessica kept on the defensive, creating a shield to block Hal's baseball bat. "Come on, Jess, you're putting me to sleep here," said Hal as he continued to fight. "Aren't you part of the Teen Titans? You gotta throw a punch or two." "And I keep telling you that I don't do violence," Jessica replied, pushing back Hal before creating a light construct of a safe. "There are other ways of fighting than just bashing people with a bat." At that moment, a massive green hammer knocked Jessica down to the asteroid. Jess landed roughly on the asteroid as the owner of the hammer landed before her with a heavy thud. The hammer wielder was a massive, bulky alien with tusk-like appendages in his face, and wore a Green Lantern uniform just like Jessica and Hal. This was the Green Lantern known as Kilowog, trainer of new recruits and highly regarded officer in the Corps. "Hal's got a point, Jess. If you were fighting anyone besides this poozer, then you wouldn't stand a chance," Kilowog said sternly. "Yeah. See? Kilowog knows what I'm talking about," Hal backed up before realizing that he was just mildly insulted. "Hey! I just believe there can be more accomplished through non-violence, rather than just using our rings as weapons," Jess tried to defend, holding steadfast to her beliefs. "This isn't game, kid. Someday, you're gonna need to use that thing for its intended purpose. Maybe not today, and maybe not tomorrow, but someday," Kilowog said, making Jess feel uneasy at the prospect of breaking her code of non-violence. "Class dismissed, poozers," Kilowog said before taking off into space as Hal and Jess went in the opposite direction, back down to Earth and Metropolis. Jessica and Hal made it back to school on time and they turned back into their everyday outfits. "Come on, Jess, lighten up," said Hal, making her feel better. "Kilowog is always rough on the new guys or girls, but he's not so bad once you get to know him. It doesn't make things any easier. But I'll prove him and you wrong. Fighting isn't always the answer," said Jessica as she moved on to her next class. "Well, see you soon," said Hal before going into the bathroom. After a quick trip to the joint, Hal went to the sink and began washing his hands. While whistling a catchy tune, he continued on his activity for a minute. Once he finished, he made a few finger guns at the mirror. "Oh yeah. You the man, Hal Jordan," said Hal before leaving the bathroom. Hal walked out and spotted the football field. It was the day of the game between Metropolis High and Coast City Prep, and as the star player of the team, everyone was cheering him on and calling out his name. Hal was loving every second of it. On the other side of the field, Jess was venting her frustrations on Izuku. In a non-violent sort of way, of course. "And then Kilowog says that I'm not tough enough. I swear that man has some severe anger issues," said Jessica, frustrated by her discussion with the trainer Green Lantern. "I wish that I could have thrown an octopus at his face. I think that he's into tough love. You want to do it your way, but sometimes you have to throw a few punches," Izuku explained, hoping that it wasn't too tough on the peace-loving girl. "If it makes you feel any better, I was trained in much the same way. All Might's mentor and my co-mentor, a Golden Age hero by the name of Gran Torino, was one heck of a taskmaster. He was a firm believer in the concept of tough love. He couldn't have been as bad as Kilowog," said Jessica, unable to imagine the kind of tyrant that Gran Torino was during training. "Hey, from my experience, he was probably worse. He hits hard for an old man half my size. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that last part," Izuku said, now feeling embarrassed at revealing that bit of information. Jessica couldn't help but laugh a bit at hearing this. "You were beaten up by a little old man?" she asked in disbelief, covering her mouth as she chuckled. "Hey, the old man was fast for his age. The guy bounced around a room like a rubber ball on steroids," Izuku tried to defend, hoping to save what little dignity he had left. He. "Don't worry, Izuku. I believe you," Jess replied, finishing her giggling before placing a supporting hand on his shoulder. "Maybe seeing the team win this game will cheer you up. The opposite team is just getting here." Izuku looked up to see the bus from Coast City Prep arrive. First came the football players and then came the cheerleaders of the team. "Oh right. Hal Jordan is in the Green Lantern Corps with you, right?" asked Izuku before looking at the school team getting ready for the game. "Is he good?" "More like he thinks he's the top of the tortilla stack, a little too full of himself if you ask me," Jessica answered with the harsh truth. "Too bad he is seen as one of the best Green Lanterns." "I hear someone call my name," Hal exclaimed, getting Izuku and Jess's attention. "Star player of both the school and the Corp. Hal Jordan reporting for duty." Speak of the devil, esta. Hello Hal, shouldn't you go to the field with the rest of the team? Asked Jessica, pointing to the team doing some warm-ups and passing the ball amongst each other. Nah, there's no need for that. The game starts in like another half hour or so, screamed Hal before hiding behind Izuku. She's here, why is she here? Izuku and Jessica looked at the other side of the field where the visiting team was just hanging out. What's going on? Are you afraid of the visiting team? Asked Izuku, a bit suspicious that a guy that has been to space and faces countless dangers was afraid of the competition. It's not the team I'm afraid of, it's her, was all that Hal said, looking at the other end of the field. Izuku and Jessica looked at where Hal was pointing towards, and were unsure as to what to think. The person that Hal was pointing to was a seemingly innocent-looking girl from Coast City. She had long black hair, fair skin, pretty red lips, purple eyes, and a beautiful, well-kept figure. She wore a yellow cheerleader uniform, which showed off her legs and had no sleeves. If anything, Jessica and Izuku were confused because the girl looked harmless, if not friendly. Who is she? Asked Jessica. She's Carol Ferris, my ex-girlfriend, Hal answered, as he pulled Izuku as if he was camouflage against Carol. You've got to get me out of here now. What's wrong? She looks quite normal, asked Izuku, slightly annoyed that the male Green Lantern was using him as a movable hiding spot. You two don't know her like I do, trust me. By the way, who are you? Asked Hal, finally acknowledging Izuku. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you, said Izuku. He's one of my friends, and not a human shield, said Jessica, prying Hal off of the green-haired boy. Hal, remember when you told me to face my problems? Well yeah, but I meant problems like a supervillain or an alien invasion. Not crazy ex-girlfriends, said Hal, shriveling in fear. Izuku couldn't help but wonder how this guy got into an intergalactic space cop group if an ex-girlfriend is enough to frighten him. At that moment, the seemingly innocent-looking girl turned her eyes to where the three green-colored heroes were talking. Her face contorted into a scowl. She stepped away from the rest of the cheerleaders and behind the bleachers of the field. Hal Jordan, for goodness sake. If the breakup was nasty, you must go there and apologize to that sweet young lady, said Jessica before a bright violet, almost pink, colored light illuminated the entire field. The three heroes turned to the source of light and were taken aback by the sight before them. The black-haired girl was now wearing a pink dress with a puffy skirt and sleeves, a white neck and elbow-length gloves that gave her the appearance of a princess with a pink tiara included. But the one thing that stood out was a violet-colored ring on her hand. Hal Jordan, I, Star Sapphire, will have you, called out Star Sapphire before creating a heart construct blast. Izuku activated full cowling and moved both Jessica and Hal out of the way. The entire field began running away as Star Sapphire engulfed herself in a flaming heart of concentrated love. Izuku was able to get the two lanterns to safety, where he hoped to get some answers. Who is she? Demanded Izuku. And why is she trying to kill you? Asked Jessica. It's kind of a complicated story, said Hal, before Star Sapphire fired another blast next to where they were staying. Of course you of all people would date a supervillain. Juro por Dios que esto solo te pasaría a ti, said Jessica, irritated by Hal's antics. We need to stop her. Time to hero up, she said, creating her hero suit in a flash of green light. Right behind you, said Izuku, pulling out his hero suit from his backpack. Let me show you how it's done, said Hal before lifting his right fist. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light, he said, raising his arm above his head only for nothing to happen. Hal's eyes widened before trying again, but still nothing happened. Why isn't this work? Oh God, my ring's gone! Hal exclaimed, noticing that his ring was indeed gone. What? How is it gone? Jessica asked in disbelief. I don't know, Hal replied, unsure as to how he could lose the most powerful weapon in the universe. I think I might have lost it, he said sheepishly. Just then, Star Sapphire blasted at them, causing Hal to fall on his butt. Jessica created a large green construct wall, shielding them from the flaming hearts from the heroes. Deku, help Hal find his ring. I'll hold her off, said Jessica, holding the wall made of willpower. On it, but be careful, Izuku responded before grabbing Hal and jumping back into the school. Izuku ran through the hallways of the school before he stopped in one of the corridors. He put Hal down, hoping for some answers. Alright Hal, just who is this Star Sapphire and why would you date her? Asked Izuku to the Green Lantern. Look dude, a Star Sapphire is like a Green Lantern, but their rings are powered by love. I didn't know that she was one when we dated, said Hal. Where was the last place you saw your ring? Asked Izuku, wanting to get back and help Jess against the lantern of love. I don't know. For all I know, someone could have taken it, Hal suggested. Does anyone other than Karen know about the rings? Asked Izuku. Not that I know of. Maybe someone just swiped it when I wasn't looking? Or I lost it when re-entering Earth's atmosphere. No, that makes no sense. Hal rambled on before another explosion shook up the building. Did you go to the changing room? Asked Izuku. Maybe you left it there by accident. Dude, I'm not a newbie to just take off my ring and leave it, oh crud. Hal realized at that moment as if Kilowog would have hit him with his hammer. Izuku hit Hal over the head for his foolishness before he dragged him to the bathroom. They went in and went straight to the sinks to find the ring. Hal put on his ring just in time to feel another shockwave from the battle outside. Get that ring going, Jess needs help, said Izuku. Got it, Greenie, Hal said, closing his fist. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light, he called out, but once again, nothing happened. Are you kidding me? Asked Izuku, angry that this Green Lantern wasn't any good. I don't know what the problem is. I charged this thing this morning, Hal said in panic as more rumbling came from outside, followed by Star Sapphire's surprisingly loud shouting. You will be mine, Hal Jordan, she screamed in anger. Was she always this clingy? Izuku asked in curiosity. And now you know why I broke up with her, Hal replied. I knew breaking up with her through text was the right idea. You did what? Asked Izuku with wide-eyed disbelief. Don't you watch any TV shows? What? I put a smiley face emoji in it. I'm not the Joker, you know, he tried and failed to defend. Izuku just facepalmed himself before grabbing Hal and rushing to the field to help Jessica. The entire football field looked like a war zone straight out of World War I. There were craters littering the field. The bleachers were destroyed and the goalposts were snapped in half. Jessica, looking worse for wear, was then slammed into the ground as Star Sapphire created a large flaming heart over her head. I won't let you have him. Hal Jordan is mine, you harlot, Star Sapphire claimed. Wait, Jess said, waving her hand about to buy a few seconds. You think that Hal and I… Ha ha ha! No. I wouldn't date that loser if he was the last man on this or any other Earth. I mean, have you met him? This question made Star Sapphire cease her assault for a second as she thought about it, which was more than enough for Izuku to start thinking of a plan. First off, he uses way too much hair product, Jess began to list off. Second, his breath almost always stinks. His ego makes Mogo the living planet look like a meteorite by comparison, and between you and me, he takes far longer shopping than the entire female student body. Hey, I'm right here, said Hal, snapping at the comments. Izuku saw how the villainess was thinking about all these facts and he got an idea. Yeah, she's right. I've only just met him and I feel dumber, Izuku added. Hey, the point is, Carol, you could do so much better than him. But to do that, you must first learn to love yourself, Jessica said as Carol began to float down to the ground, tears in her eyes. Izuku rushed to Jessica's side and helped her up. She was in a pretty bad shape. Her no-fighting policy sure showed that she had a pretty strong will. Star Sapphire, you don't have to pine over that guy. I mean, look at him. He's a mess, said Izuku, pointing at Hal. Again, I'm still here. Why don't you just send her flying or something, said Hal, waving his hands in annoyance. You are both right. I don't need to be in love with Hal to be happy. I can just love myself, said Star Sapphire, smiling like a girl in love before her sapphire aura glowed bright once more. And one day I will make you, Hal Jordan, the man that I deserve, she claimed before blasting off into the sky. That's not good, said Jessica. I think I taught her too well. Yeah, no, there's a crazy Star Sapphire out there with her powers turned up to 11. Why couldn't you just hit her once? Asked Hal, a little ticked that his ex was now more powerful than ever. No, you did the right thing, Jess. If anything, I'm the one who should be sorry for not being more helpful in the fight, said Izuku, a little embarrassed for his lack of action. Jessica could only smile as Izuku comforted her. However, she was also blushing at the fact that she was being pressed into him and could feel his muscles. She couldn't believe how well developed he was for someone so seemingly scrawny. She guessed the costume didn't do him justice. Ay mami, que musculos, said Jess, blushing, completely unaware that she forgot English for a moment. What was that? Asked Izuku. Oh, nothing. I think we're good," said Jessica, stepping slightly away from Izuku. After the attack from the pink supervillain, the football game was postponed indefinitely until the field was repaired. A couple hours later, Izuku, Jess, and the other members of the Titans got a text from Barbara. "OMG! Guys, meet up at Pier ASAP. Huge news I gotta show you." The text message read, followed by a bunch of crazy emojis. The team met at the pier where Barbara was bouncing like a puppy trying to get a bone. "We're here, Barbara. What is the big news?" asked Diana. "Well, I just wanted to show you that. Pause for dramatic effect. Sweet Justice has been rebuilt," Barbara said, showing the recently rebuilt sweet shop. "Alright, I could use some sugar," said Kara. "For our next victory we shall celebrate here," Diana called out. "Well yeah, but that's not the thing I wanted to show you," intercepted Barbara. "Follow me," she said, as she led the group into the restaurant and they took their seats at a booth in the back. Once everyone was seated, Barbara leaned over the table and began to fiddle with the straw dispenser, as if entering a locker or safe combination. Finally opening and closing the dispenser, dropping the straws all over the table, she then retook her seat. A few seconds passed and nothing happened. Before anyone could ask the reason for doing that, the booth seemed to flip into the wall, quickly being replaced with an identical booth from the floor. The group slid down what felt like a slide, before landing on something firm yet soft in a huge pile. Suddenly, a light turned on over their heads and they found that they were lying on a mattress in what appeared to be some manner of underground area. "My fellow Titans, allow me to introduce you to our new secret lair," Barbara exclaimed happily as more lights turned on, showing off individual areas for each of the heroes. "No way, a secret lair," said Izuku, shocked by the lair. "How did you build this in just a couple of weeks?" asked Kara. "I took some late-night visits to the construction site," Barbara said, waving off the question like it was no big deal. "The workers didn't notice me one bit. This is amazing. Friends, from here on out this shall be our base from which we will defend the city," proclaimed Diana, filled with pride that was passed on to the other members of the team. Everyone cheered as the night went on. As the girls celebrated their new base of operations, Izuku looked about the place and found something that made him smile. A pinboard that had news clippings from the Daily Planet that showed their past victories. But what really made him smile was a photo booth reel that showed the group the night they first became friends as well as a team. Hat trick. Izuku had been asked by Zatanna to accompany her to one of her shows. He was mostly in charge of just standing there and keeping the kids from getting grabby with the performance. They were in a kid's backyard, and Zatanna was performing her usual party tricks, such as bits of sleight of hand and minor levitation that were driving the kids wild with excitement. Izuku, for his part, couldn't believe how a girl that could make anything out of thin air was working as a party magician. He knew many people that would have given up an arm and a leg for such abilities, and yet here she was making doves appear out of her hat. Thank you all! You're too kind," Zatanna said, bowing while the children cheered. Izuku kept the kids from going over the line but couldn't help but clap along with them. "Now, I believe that it's time for the birthday girl to go get some cake," called out Zatanna, making the children stampede towards the table. The children quickly went to the table, leaving Izuku and Zatanna to clean up the small stage that she'd been using for the show. "Awesome show, Zatanna. Knocked it out of the park," Izuku said, putting away some of the props. "Oh please, Izuku darling, this isn't even half of me at my best," she said as she began tossing things into her top hat. Everything disappearing the second it entered the fancy headpiece. "If I'm ever given a chance to perform on a big stage, you'll be able to see what I can really do. I just hope you save the best for when we're out on patrol," said Izuku while putting the boxes away. "Don't worry, my dad's first rules are to use magic with care and to never abuse its power," said Zatanna with a smile, twirling her top hat before placing it on top of her head. At that moment the mother of the birthday girl, while being accompanied by some of the children, came up to the two teens and offered them a seat at the table. The kids began dragging both Izuku and Zatanna, unbeknownst to her, making her drop her hat onto the ground. The two teens were given cake and a party hat as they sang happy birthday to the birthday girl. The kids continued to play until the party came to an end, while Izuku and Zatanna were paid by the mother. "We can't thank you enough for coming here and performing for the party," said the father as he watched the children play in the backyard. "No problem, sir," Izuku said, happy that the kids had a fun party. "Whenever you need a little sense of wonder, don't forget to call the fabulous Zatanna," said Zatanna, giving a final bow. The parents clapped happily before the two teens had to go. They had homework after all. As the two teens walk home, they began talking about the party. "That was a pretty fun party, Zatanna," said Izuku. "Yeah, it was fun," she replied, feeling pretty good about having some more alone time with the green-haired boy. "But what I really want is to be hired for some big jobs. Jobs that put me in front of big crowds without my dad holding my hand." The magic user of the Teen Titans was indeed intrigued by the exchange student. She figured that she was indeed smitten by his selfless actions and heroic demeanor. But she had yet to see Izuku as anything other than a simple crush. Not of course that she wasn't willing to pursue a romantic relationship with him. "I'm sure that you'll do amazing when you're hired for one of those," said Izuku before something caught his eye. "Why thank you, Izuku. I'll be sure to give you a front row seat," said Zatanna, feeling really proud of herself and happy for the praise. "Zatanna, where did you put your hat?" asked Izuku, causing Zatanna to stop dead in her tracks. Zatanna slowly reached for her head, hoping to touch her hat, but she felt nothing. "Oh no, oh no, oh no," she said in a panic, looking around for her top hat, but found nothing. Zatanna screamed as loud as a banshee when she didn't find her hat. Izuku jumped back as he got freaked out by the sudden scream. "We have to find that hat," said Zatanna, shaking Izuku like a rag doll. "The fate of this city could be in jeopardy if we don't find it." "What's wrong with that hat? What can it do?" asked Izuku, scared at what the hat could do in the wrong hands. "That hat's a family heirloom, passed down by the masters of the mystic arts," Zatanna explained while bringing Izuku's face close to hers. "If it falls into the wrong hands, it could unleash the forces of magic without a master to stop it." "So yes, this is very bad." Izuku began looking into the boxes, but he didn't find the top hat inside, which meant that the hat had to be back at the house. The two teens rushed to the party house as quickly as they could, only to find that the party had ended and most of the kids had gone home. Zatanna spotted the homeowners that hired her and quickly went up to them. "Oh, hey there kids. Back for some more cake?" asked the father. "No, we're sorry to intrude, but we're looking for Zatanna's top hat," said Izuku, hoping that the parents would have seen it. "It was borrowed and we kinda need it back." "Have you seen it?" asked Zatanna, looking around for any signs of it. "Oh, sorry about that, but we haven't seen it. One of the kids must have taken it," said the mother before she spotted her daughter. "Sweetie, do you know where Ms. Zatanna's hat is?" "I think Charlie took it," the little girl assumed. "Do you know where he lives? It's really important that you tell us," said Zatanna, trying not to freak out too much, or at least pretend not to. "He lives on the other side of the river next to the Daily Planet. He left like a minute or so." "Hey, there he goes with his mom," said the birthday girl, pointing to a passing car with the boy in question riding in the back seat. Both Izuku and Zatanna ran after the car, constantly yelling at it to stop, all the while not knowing that the car was playing the radio, drowning out their calls. Just then Zatanna was forced to stop Izuku before he was ran over by a large lorry truck. "Are you alright?" asked Zatanna, worried for her assistant and friend's life. "Yes, I'm alright. We need to catch up to that car before something else happens," he said before pulling off his shirt and revealing his hero suit. "Come on. Let's go." Zatanna briefly blushed at the sight of Izuku pulling apart his shirt, but quickly got back in the game, and in a flash of light, she stood with her hero suit. The two heroes ran after the car. Zatanna flew high in the air while Izuku jumped from rooftop to rooftop, with the skill and speed of a trained jaguar. Zatanna spotted the car that they were looking for and signaled it to Izuku to go after it. Meanwhile, inside the car that the two Teen Titans were chasing, the young kid that had taken the magical hat continued to play with it as he would any normal hat. But then the kid saw something shine from within Zatanna's magical hat. He reached in and pulled out a small dove from it. "Look, Mommy, the hat is magical. I just pulled this dove out of it," cried out the young boy, showing his mother the dove. "Honey, get rid of that bird. Out the window now," called the mother of the child. Little Charlie moaned in opposition but listened to his mother. He opened the window and let the dove out. "Bye, big bird," said Charlie as the bird flew away from the car. Just as Izuku caught up with the car and was preparing to pounce into its path in an effort to stop it, the dove flew out the window and right into his face. "Ah! Bird! Bird! Bird in my face!" he yelled in panic, throwing him off course and causing him to crash into a lamppost. Izuku slowly fell down to the ground. He slowly got up and rubbed his face in an effort to nurse it. The young hero looked up to see the car drive off down the street and out of sight. "Izuku, are you alright?" asked Zatanna, landing next to the young hero. "Aside from crashing into a lamppost?" Yeah, I'm fine, he replied before they took off after the car once more. Well, as far as we know the kid's only gotten a bird out of the hat. That's very little comfort, I'm afraid. Just as Zatanna said that, the dove began to grow bigger and bigger, until it was the size of a small Prius. The now larger dove flew down towards Izuku and Zatanna, probably thinking that they were bugs. Zatanna noticed the large shadow coming at them and turned to see the monstrous-sized dove flying at them. The dove plunged down at them, trying to peck them. Zatanna and Izuku dodged just as it attacked, narrowly dodging the beast's massive beak by a few inches. Izuku jumped off of a nearby building wall and kicked the dove in the face, knocking it out. "Emo si balams Ivod Niaga," chanted Zatanna as a ball of purple light landed on the large dove. The large dove began to turn small once more, and soon enough it was back to its normal size. Once the feathered menace was taken care of, the two heroes went back to recovering the missing hat. They spotted the car turning a corner and found themselves heading towards Main Street, right towards the Daily Planet. Back inside the car, little Charlie continued to pull stuff out of the hat. The mother looked at all the stuff that was inside her car and was completely taken aback by the stuff that she hadn't noticed. "Charlie, how did you get all that stuff in the car?" asked the mother. "I got it from the hat, Mom. Look, these rings are unbreakable. Look," said Charlie, pulling at the ring before it accidentally was flung out the window and they began to bounce around the street, catching anyone unaware of them in a bind. The rings continued to bounce off of the building walls until Izuku and Zatanna spotted them coming their way. Izuku blocked one of them with his left arm but was dragged by the ring until he clashed with Zatanna. The rings continued to bounce around until both heroes were bound together before falling down to the street. Izuku, being the gentleman that he is, landed first with Zatanna landing on top of him. "I can't see Zatanna. What's going on?" asked Izuku as he and Zatanna struggled to get back on their feet. "That's probably because our faces are stuck together," said Zatanna, blushing, knowing that Izuku was inches from her lips. They struggled to get back on their feet, and after 3 tries they finally made it upright. "As much as I enjoy being near a handsome boy, SG near. Dinibnu DNA a sailor Sue," she said in her backwards language, causing the rings to expand and fall off the two teenage heroes. Both Izuku and Zatanna dusted themselves before taking a few deep breaths. "Are you all right, Zatanna?" asked Izuku, concerned for the magician as he took a second to catch his breath. "Yeah, I'm wonderful, but we lost the car again," said Zatanna, dusting herself off. "Not really. There they are," said Izuku, pointing to the kid getting out of the car. "Yes, let's go," said Zatanna as they flew after the kid. "Yeah, no need to repeat the bunny-sitting fiasco," said Izuku as they quickly crossed the street. "Please do not remind me of that," said Zatanna as they made it to where the kid was. The teenage heroes were a couple of steps from the kid when suddenly, "Look, Mommy, a lizard," said Charlie, showing the hat to her mother. "Oh no," Zatanna replied as from within the top hat a massive scaly dragon shot out and launched into the air above them, letting out an ear-splitting roar, followed closely by a stream of concentrated fire. Izuku's eyes went wide at the sight of the dragon. "Please tell me you weren't thinking of pulling that one out of the hat," Izuku said, slightly freaking out from the sight. "Of course not. That would have been overkill," replied Zatanna before creating a shield against the flames that fell to the ground. People all around screamed at the dragon as it began to tear apart everything in sight. Izuku and Zatanna jumped high against the dragon, hoping to draw it away from the people. Zatanna pulled a rope made out of scarves and wrapped it around the dragon's mouth. The dragon fought against the binds and inevitably broke the rope. This, however, bought Izuku enough time to build up some momentum against some nearby buildings before leaping at the dragon full force. "Detroit! Smash!" Deku yelled, crashing his fist across the overgrown reptile's face in a powerful right hook. The great lizard recoiled in pain as it plummeted from the sky back down to the ground. Just then, Izuku noticed the little kid and his mom petrified from fright. Izuku thought quickly, hoping to come up with a solution. Then it occurred to him. He pulled back his legs and focused the power of one for all before he kicked the air with great strength. "New Hampshire! Smash!" called out Izuku, using the compressed air behind him. He passed the dragon and moved both mother and child out of harm's way. However, given that he had just now thought of this, Izuku hadn't thought of a landing strategy. Izuku turned his body hoping to receive most of the damage himself. But it was not the hard pavement that the green hero felt. He instead found himself wrapped around the arms of the team's magic user Zatanna. "Don't act so surprised, Deku darling. It is a magician's responsibility to take care of her assistant," said Zatanna, getting back to her feet. Thank you, Zatanna, Izuku replied as he helped the mother and child back to their feet. Sorry, little man, but I'm gonna need my hat back, Zatanna said, holding out her hand, to which the boy placed her top hat. Great, you have your hat back, but how do we get rid of that thing? Deku asked as the dragon got back to its feet. Well, that's simple, my dear, she said, placing her hat between her left arm and torso as she waved her wand to and fro. It's as easy as one, she started as the dragon shook off its haze and trained its eyes on the heroes. 2, she continued, the dragon roaring once more as it began to charge, Izuku panicking a bit while Zatanna was unfazed and held a confident smile. Suddenly, the dragon released a stream of fire that was barreling towards the duo like a flamethrower. 3, she exclaimed, tapping the rim of her hat with her wand as a massive vacuum-like whirlwind came from the pit of the hat and began sucking up the fire, closely followed by a terrified dragon trying to hold its ground by digging its claws into the pavement. All the different magical items removed from the hat were also sucked back up into the headpiece. Finally, the second the dragon's tail made contact with the event horizon of the hat, the rest of the dragon followed suit, leaving its massive head for just a second to take one last breath of fresh air before disappearing back into the place from whence it came. The whirlwind soon died down, and with a flourish toss into the air before landing atop her head perfectly, Zatanna smiled a smirk of pure confidence. And cue the applause, darling, she said simply as the bystanders were in complete awe of what they had just witnessed for a solid minute before breaking out into thunderous applause. A short time later, and a few autographs from Zatanna, the two teens made it back to their team lair to rest up from a stressful day. What a day, said Izuku as he fell down on the couch. I never want to see a dragon ever again. Now don't say that, Izuku, Zatanna said as she prepared a cup of tea for the two of them. The life of a superhero is often unpredictable. For all you know, you could go to another planet tomorrow. Like my father always says, just enjoy the little detours in life, she said before taking the 2 teacups to Izuku. Both teens took a sip of their drink before letting out a sigh. After the whole events of the day, rest was of course in the teens' minds. But something else came up on Zatanna's mind as she gazed at her assistant. A sneaky idea crept into her mind. She reached for her top hat as she got next to the green-haired boy. Say, Izuku, since the day is almost over, would you like to see one final trick? Asked Zatanna innocently. Yeah, I guess it wouldn't hurt. Just please, no dragons, Izuku replied. Zatanna signaled the boy to get closer and to look into the hat. Izuku did as she instructed. He expected some sort of animal or creature to jump at him, but that didn't appear to be Zatanna's style. So what could it possibly be? At that moment, Izuku's thoughts were cut short when a warm sensation was felt on his cheek. Izuku's eyes slowly moved to the right. To his surprise, Zatanna was kissing his cheek. I thought you deserved it, assistant, said Zatanna with a smoldering smile on her face. Izuku, for his part, almost passed out, which enticed a giggle from Zatanna. Oh, I am so going to have fun with you as my assistant, Izuku, said Zatanna with a smile. Gotta be fast. The Teen Titans were in pursuit of a group of criminals after they robbed the Metropolis Central Bank. Deku was running after them from the ground, jumping every once in a while for a chance to pin them down. High from above, Supergirl, Green Lantern, and Zatanna were doing their best to cut them off from above. Diana ran side by side with Izuku with the company of Karen and were ready to make their move. Wonder Woman to Batgirl. Do you read me? Asked Diana through the team's communicators. Batgirl's here. Ready when you guys are, Batgirl replied through the comm link. Batgirl sat on top of a building's gargoyle looking down to the street the bank robbers were driving down, planning out the perfect point to strike. We're heading to your position. You may take action now, called Diana from the other side of the comm link. Awesome. Wish me luck, Goliath, said Batgirl before jumping from the gargoyle onto the escape car of the robbers. Batgirl glided down to where the car was about to be when suddenly there was an ear-splitting kakaraka boom. A red and yellow blur coated with lightning crossed between Batgirl and the robber's car. Barbara lost her balance, making her plummet to the ground. She let out a scream, but then Izuku jumped forwards and caught her just in time. You alright, Batgirl? Asked Izuku as Diana and Bumblebee caught up. Yeah, what the heck was that? Barbara replied. It was like a flash of lightning came out of nowhere, she said just as Kara, Jess, and Zatanna landed next to them. Well, whatever it was, it just did our job for us, said Kara looking at the tied-up bank robbers. Whoever it was very fast, said Diana. Deku, said Barbara, getting Izuku's attention. Yeah? Izuku asked. You can put me down now, Barbara said. Izuku realized that he was still holding up the bat-themed member of the team. He then placed her gently on the ground before his blush could extend or brighten. This of course was caught by the other members of the team, who they each had a similar reaction to the green-haired boy's actions. They all in some way or another wanted to be in the position that Barbara had been. The next day the team was reading some blog posts made by the Daily Planet about the mysterious blurs. The article didn't say much, only that people had heard the sound of lightning and then in a blur, any criminal or problem had been solved. This has been happening all over the city the whole week, said Barbara as the team scrolled over the article. Crimes ranging from purse snatchers to bank robberies have been stopped by this mysterious blur. Could this be the work of another hero in this city? Diana asked, curious as the action seemed far too specific to be random. Maybe. Aside from us, there's Superman, Izuku suggested, causing Kara to grunt. But this is happening way too fast, he added before pulling out his hero notebook. The girls looked at the notebook as Izuku kept shifting from page to page until he found the one he was looking for. This of course intrigued the girls as to what that notebook was all about. Here it is. Superman usually flies in and stands against any criminal. He makes it so to give everyone a good look at him. He even takes time to talk to people to make sure that they're all right, Izuku explained to the team as best as he could. The blur, for its part, leaves as fast as he appears. Then it isn't Superman but another hero, deduced Jessica. If that's the case, then how about we find out who the blur really is, Kara said, hitting her palm with her fist. Then it is decided that we will find out who the blur might be and ask him or her what their intentions might be, said Diana. Well, in the meantime, who's up for some ice cream? Barbara asked, getting some nods of agreement as they got their stuff packed up for later, as they exited out the secret back door to the alley behind the sweet shop before re-entering through the front door. Hey guys, how's it going? Weren't you just here a little while ago? Barry asked from where he was wiping down the front counter. Yes, but something came up and we had to leave and now we're back, ha ha. Should just stop talking, Barbara tried to lie. However, despite how weak it sounded, the charming, fast-talking employee seemed to buy it. Well, that's cool. What can I get you guys? Usuals all round? He asked, getting nods from the group as he rushed and quickly got their orders quick as a flash. Thanks, Barry, the team replied, as they left for their table. As they were eating their respective treats, Barbara began thinking about the mission, on how she was the one that was always being rescued. She was the only one that didn't have powers in one way or another, or that was at least competent with her tools. Her eyes then went to Izuku, as she remembered his hero notebook. Say, Izuku, what was that notebook of yours? Asked Barbara. Izuku was slightly caught off guard. But now that he thought about it, he hadn't told them about it. Oh, it's sorta my record of heroes, said Izuku sheepishly. I used it to analyze and look into heroes back in Japan. I figured that it could be a good way to prepare myself if I ever became a hero. But what exactly are you analyzing anyway? Asked Kara, curious to know if they were in that notebook. Anything I can see or catch on to, Izuku said. Their fighting style, their powers and abilities, costume designs, and how they operate. Stuff like that. In case I can use it in my fights or improve my style, he explained, showing some different crude sketches of different heroes, including Superman, All Might, and surprisingly, them. There were even little notes about their costumes, such as how Kara's cape helped her turn tight corners while flying, as well as possible designs to improve upon some of the girls' gadgets, such as Bumblebee's stingers and what looked like a remote control batarang from what Barbara saw for a second before Izuku turned the page over. This is an amazing chronicle of heroic deeds and abilities. With this information we can improve our abilities and become better heroes, said Diana, looking over Izuku's shoulder at the notes. But seriously, Greenie, you've got to learn how to draw. Is that really supposed to be me? Asked Kara, pointing to the rough drawing. I only had so much time to make a sketch and write down my notes, Izuku defended himself and his drawings. Most of the notes were taken in the middle of a hero versus villain fight and others when the news covered the events. Besides, I prioritized the notes over the sketches. Barbara, meanwhile, was eating up everything that she saw from the notebook. Everything gave her an idea or two. Later that night, Barbara was putting some of the notes that she saw to use in an effort to improve herself as she sat on the roof of one of the many skyscrapers of the city. Alright. Suggestion number 1. Improve my focus and tracking skills. These high-frequency goggles should do the trick. They block sound and help focus in the fight much better, said Barbara as she put on the goggles. Let's see if the blur can keep up with me while wearing these babies. Just then, a blur of lightning passed through her field of vision. Barbara followed it with her sight. Gotcha, said Barbara before firing her grappling hook and swinging after the blur. Barbara swung through the air, following the path of the blur. She could see everything as clear as day with the goggles. She jumped and leaped over the cars until she found the residue of the blur's path. You are so not getting away, said Barbara, unaware of where she was running. Batgirl continued to run after the blur but was then hit in the side of the head by a basketball. This caused her to fall down and damage the goggles with the concrete. Dang it, she groaned, getting up and taking off her goggles. No bother, I have other things to track down the blur with, she started before pulling out a small, bat-shaped object from her utility belt. Suggestion number 2. Bat tracers, which I have to put on the blur to follow him or her, she said before realizing something. I need help from the source. The next day, Izuku was putting his books back into his locker without a care in the world. Then out of nowhere, Barbara appeared behind the green hero. Izuku! Barbara called out, causing the young male hero to jump in fright. Barbara, what are you doing? Izuku asked, holding his chest as if he feared that he was going to have a heart attack from all the jumping he had been doing from the time he had been in Metropolis. You almost gave me a heart attack. Sorry about that, but this is important. I need your help, said Barbara. What would you need my help with? Izuku asked. After getting a look at your notes, I wanted to run a few things by you in order to catch the blur, said Barbara, digging into her backpack for a map of the city. I believe that I have a pretty good idea of how we can find out who the blur is, and I need your help to make sure that we can pull it off. All right, I'll help, said Izuku, nodding his head in agreement. What's your plan? He asked, causing her to smile. An hour later, both heroes found themselves on a rooftop wearing their hero suits. Barbara pulled out the map that she had and showed Izuku all the red marks on it. These marks I put down signify points where people saw the blur pass them by, along with any traffic cam footage that I managed to find. According to my findings, his most visited spots are here, here, and here, she said, pointing to 2nd Street, the Pier, and Centennial Park. So all we have to do is go down there and look around for anything that could give us a clue as to who the blur might be, Izuku asked inquisitively. That sounds like a lot of ground to cover. Shouldn't we call the rest of the team to see if they can lend a hand? Not to worry, I have it all planned out, said Batgirl. All we have to do is look for anyone that has the clear signs of a speedster, accelerated rhythm, fast talk, and intense appetite. A lot of speed takes a lot of energy. Plus, I've hacked into the city traffic cameras to alert me when they sense any high-speed objects. Throw in the motion sensor on my tablet, and we may just be able to nail this guy. Wow. You really thought of everything, Izuku said, honestly impressed by the setup. Well, I was trained by Batman. Don't quote me on that, Batgirl said when she suddenly got an alert on her tablet. The traffic cams picked up something fast. It's heading for the pier, she said before reaching into her utility belt and taking out her grappling hook. Come on, Deku, we can cut him off if we take Action Street, Barbara called out before swinging with her grappling hook, followed closely by Izuku, leaping from the rooftop and following after. The two heroes traveled fast and hard until they found themselves in Action Street. At the other end of the street they spotted the blur pass. Izuku and Barbara took after it as fast as they could. Whether it was jumping from building to building or over oncoming cars, they followed behind the blur's trail. They soon saw it turn a corner into an alleyway. However, when they arrived on the rooftop, they noticed the familiarity of where they stood. Wait. Isn't this? Izuku started before Batgirl finished. The roof of Sweet Justice. Why would the blur come here? She asked before looking down into the alley, only to see a red-suited person standing in the alley. Suddenly the person spun in a tight circle, creating a small whirlwind before it dissipated, revealing the person under the suit, causing Barbara to quietly gasp at who it was. The blonde hair, that friendly smile, and those blue eyes that welcomed her and her friends whenever they came here. I don't believe it. Barry Allen is the blur. Barbara exclaimed in a loud whisper. It kinda makes sense since he's always moving at a crazy speed, said Izuku, thinking back at the waiter's speed while on the job. Although, I always thought that he was in a sugar rush of some kind. Barbara jumped down to see what Barry was up to. She kept to the shadows as Barry went on his way. Izuku looked from the top of the restaurant as Barry entered from the back door. Just then, Izuku spotted a group of people wearing animal masks. One of them had a horse mask, another one had a pink bunny mask, and the last member had a panda mask. "Who are these guys?" asked Izuku before they went for the door of Sweet Justice before kicking the door open. "Alright, nobody move. This is a robbery," the leader of the small group yelled, pointing some manner of high-tech laser pistol around the restaurant aimed at the patrons. Batgirl pulled back and Izuku pulled her back onto the rooftop to formulate a plan. "We have to stop these guys," said Barbara, wanting to jump into action. "But we can't just do that. We have to take them down without getting their attention," said Izuku, calming down Barbara. "Barry can't use his speed since everyone is watching. We have to play this smarter." Barbara wanted to go in, but Izuku kept pushing her down as to not give away their position. It was a battle of wills. They both wanted to go in and fight, but they couldn't be hasty. Barbara was running through several ideas in her mind, but none were useful in this situation. "We're wasting time, we need to act now," said Barbara before Izuku pulled her back. "What now? We can't just go like that." "What would Batman do?" Izuku asked, looking at the power box. "Well, "Oh, I see what you're going on about," said Batgirl. Inside the restaurant, the criminals were holding the people hostage, and the one wearing the horse mask held his laser pistol at Barry's face. Barry, for his part, was about to turn the situation on its head, but suddenly the entire place went dark. Everyone wasn't sure about what was going on since the other lights on the pier were still on. "Don't tell me someone forgot to pay the lights," said the panda criminal. "This is like jumbo cupcakes all over again," said the bunny masked criminal, getting a little nervous. Just then, the horse-masked criminal was kicked in the side of the head, sending him to the ground. The other two looked to where their partner was but found no trace of what had hit him. The bunny-masked crook heard a disturbance to his left, causing him to aim in that direction, resisting the urge to open fire. They heard something metal clink before the bunny's weapon was knocked from his hands, a batarang embedded in its side. Before he could react, a metal claw flew from the shadows and grabbed him, pulling him back into the shadows like he was a feather. The panda was now in a panic as he aimed all around him, looking for anything to open fire at. "Where are you?" he shouted into the darkness. "Here," a female voice whispered behind him. Just as he turned to look, a bat wing-covered fist collided with his face, breaking what felt like his nose and knocking a couple teeth loose. The lights came back on, showing that the criminals were now tied up and huddled together in the middle of the room. Standing next to the downed criminals were both Deku and Batgirl, striking a superhero pose. The crowd of people cheered for the heroes as Barry let out a sigh of relief. A short time later, the criminals were taken away by the police. Both heroes had turned back to their regular clothes and joined up with the rest of the crowd. Izuku and Barbara looked at Barry as he went back to doing his job. "Should we?" asked Izuku, looking at Barbara. "Wouldn't hurt. I mean, if you don't know who has your back, then who can you trust?" Barbara replied as she walked up to the counter. "Hey guys, small one-on-one time, what can I get you?" asked Barry. "Actually, Barry, someone told us to give you a message," said Barbara, giggling. "Oh cool. What's the message?" "Wait, if it's Mr. Duncan's history report, tell him that I'm almost done with it, and he'll have it tomorrow morning," Barry said before whipping up a couple of milkshakes. "No, it's not that. But one of the heroes said that they know you serve some super sundaes," said Barbara, giggling to herself. "Whatever that means. Wink wink." Huh?" replied Barry, completely lost. "We didn't get it either, but they said that if a fast blur needs help, they'll be there to help," Izuku said with a smile. Barry finally seemed to get the gist of it before giving a big, "Oh." "In that case, tell them that if they ever need a quick hand or two, then the blur will help them, in a flash," Barry said, as he then went to attend other customers. The two teen heroes left the place that was secretly their lair. As they reached a crosswalk, Barbara looked down at the pavement before deciding to do what she's been wanting to for a while. She quickly leaned up to Izuku and delivered a quick peck to his left cheek. "See you tomorrow, Izuku," she said just as the light turned green and she ran ahead of the green-haired boy, leaving him to wonder what exactly happened.